Did you see what Scottie Pippen had to say on our friend DP's show today?
I just saw it. Luckily, thankfully for you, I was starting a sleep marathon last night when I got back from Clippers Suns, and that was going to mean about 15 hours to catch up on days without it. And so I saw nothing on my own. Thankfully, your producer sent me this. I say thankfully so I can be aware. And I just looked at it and shook my head, and I don't know. I talk to Scottie occasionally, and sometimes like during previous seasons it'd be more than occasionally because we would work together on Rachel's show on The Jump, and known Scottie for a long time. I don't have any extra knowledge. I have no special intel on this. I looked at it and went, "What?" Like probably most people did. So I'm just catching up, and I know we're all going to have to react to it and to whatever comes from it, the reactions to the reactions. But yeah, I'm just now seeing it, a half an hour or so ago.
So what were your boots on the ground recollection of the Kukoc and Pippen moment back in the day?
Well, look, it was as dramatic as the NBA can get. I was, at the game. And immediately I didn't realize that Scottie wasn't on the court coming out of that timeout. And,
right.
Then you look, and you're wondering what's going on. It all happens in a flash. And there was no social media, of course, to just dissect it over and over and over again a million times in the next, 48 hours. And it was Scottie's low moment. And it's certainly a moment that I know he hated having to relive during The Last Dance. And I did, communicate with him after that. And I was one of the people who was critical. How could you not be? I also think that, that moment, unfortunately, and I could talk to Scottie about it, that game, that moment, it colored him for a long time. And I came to think, Rich, that it couldn't be the only thing that made us think a certain way about Scottie Pippen, because he did win 6. He didn't win 1. He didn't win 2. He won 6. And Michael never won without him. And Scottie went on to play for a team that should have been in the NBA Finals. The Portland Trail Blazers with a 19-point lead in the fourth quarter of a Game 7 against the Lakers, Kobe and Shaq. And that, I don't know how that winning and getting to the finals is interesting, how that might have changed further the narrative. But I thought we were away from this. I thought we were away from this. I thought I have written publicly, said to Scottie, I'm not going to solely judge you by a worse moment. None of us wants to be judged that way. And his career has too much else in it. The resume is too full. And now I hear this. I don't know what to think yet.
Michael Wilbon here on the Rich Eisen Show. Just for completion for the moment, Pippen has just tweeted out, "I'm just answering the questions y'all asking me. You wanted the headlines, you got them. Dig deeper to find out why I actually said what I said instead of framing your questions to get clicks. It's all love," as with a heart emoji. What do you think that means? Dig deeper to find out.
I do. Here's one thing I learned not to do, Rich. Put too much into answers that come via social media. It's not discussion. It's social media. I don't know what it means. I can't tell you what it means. I can react to who I think Phil Jackson is and was in my experience. And I was not around Phil every day. The people who I will listen to on this will be, and hear what they say, are the people who played for Phil and worked with him. So, I know those men, obviously starting with Michael Jordan, who will be asked. I don't know how he will weigh in, but he will be asked.
Right.
And so many others. Ron Harper, who I know well. I want to hear what Ron Harper has to say. I want to hear what B.J. Armstrong has to say. I want to hear what Steve Kerr, and Tony Kukoc. I wouldn't mind, I've been on a golf course a few times with Tony Kukoc, which is a 5-hour fun fest. I would love to have 4 hours or 5 hours of access to Tony today. So I'm not going to, I'm too old and too not of the generation to spend hours, even minutes, trying to figure out what people are saying with emojis and, secret phrases that are not meant for me. They're meant for my 13-year-old son. I don't.
Michael,
I can't do that. But I want to hear in order to be able to engage, because we're going to have to. But it won't come. I don't know what all love means. I mean, everybody utters these phrases these days, and it usually means nothing, and you have to get beneath it.
I guess
it is asking the questions, but it's going to be asking the questions of Scottie as well as the men who are on that team.
Right, and so I guess the last one for you on this subject before we go to the here and now, then, Michael Wilbon, is what can you tell me about the Pippen-Jordan relationship? Because it's clearly something that Pippen also said to Dan that the NBA entertainment cameras that picked up the huddle in which Michael was seeming to be absolutely fine, as well as be at the forefront of setting Kerr up for a winning shot that we all know in The Last Dance about, was a setup. It was Jordan knowing that the cameras were there and that he would control it for a documentary. And there just seems to be a lot of confusing statements. But it was all.
Well, they have a complex. They've had a complex relationship. I don't think that's any. We saw that in the documentary, which explains it much more than any, individual statements will. We saw that, and there was a time when they didn't. I don't know that it was ever, in my view, hostile. It was just they are very different people. They had a complex relationship in which Michael. We know from The Last Dance how demanding Michael was of Scottie Pippen, but we know of Steve Kerr. We know those stories now, and I believe I know that some of that, the reliving of that, hurt Scottie. I know that it hurt him. The reliving of these moments that hurt in the beginning. If they were complex and they hurt 30 years ago, then we know what they must feel like 30 years later. They were never the best of friends. I mean, there were people on the team that Michael was closer to, B.J. Armstrong. I mean, there were people on the team that, the irony of Scottie and Kukoc and that whole thing in the Olympics and the Dream Team is that Tony Kukoc and Scottie became very close. And when you mentioned Scottie to Tony, he called him Pip, and he'd have a smile on his face. And Scottie became very much his big brother, as I interpret it from both of them. But these things they're not going to change, right? The relationships, you can't undo the relationships. You can't redo the relationships. There's no mulligan, pun intended, on these relationships. They were complex a year ago when we finished watching The Last Dance, right about now, or maybe a month earlier.
Right.
And so this is what it is. And there was less examination of Phil and the guys. I mean, Michael has told me, to get to Phil for a second, he told me that the three most important men in his life, and I quoted him somewhere doing this in the Washington Post, in live time, that the three most important men in his life were his father, Dean Smith, and Phil Jackson. And in the context, I'd have to go back and get the context. I don't know if the context was, it couldn't be solely basketball because his dad was the headliner, and obviously we know that. That comes as no secret. So that relationship maybe was less complex. I don't know that all of us know. Maybe the Chicago beat writers know a ton about Phil's relationship with Scottie other than 1.8 seconds, maybe.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.